students, today's topic of discussion is trade cycle, concept, phases and causes. I will start this lecture with a quotation from Samuelson. I quote, "Business conditions never stand still. Prosperity is always followed by panic. In a capitalist economy, certain economic phenomena are inevitable. Boom, slump, growth and decline are the common features of business, trade and industry in a free economy. The free economy cannot avoid vices and merits of trade cycle, competition and other laissez-faire economic phenomenon. The real indicator of free economy is uncertainty, unpredictability and inevitability of various economic events. The phenomenon of trade cycle is noticed occurring in every stage of the economy. Economy cannot remain static, unchanged and unresponsive to different events. It is the basic tendency of every economy to respond even for minor changes and insignificant events at times. Therefore, it becomes essential to study the phenomenon of trade cycle. It would be inappropriate to curse the phenomenon of trade cycle with the presumption that it disturbs the pace and peace of economy. If an economy has tendency to grow at one point of time, it will stop growing because of natural limits to growth. Unlimited and unrestricted growth is a utopian concept. Similarly, there cannot be unidimensional growth process. Growth has multiple facets and dimensions. It is affected and influenced by various factors. The diagram here indicates different trends in world economy explaining the phases of ups, down, revival as well as fall. With this brief introduction, let us move to the concept of business cycles. The term business cycle or trade cycle is still primarily associated with business trends or fluctuations in the economy. A business cycle is a sequential economic activity that occurs in an economy. It is characterized by four phases, that is prosperity, recession, depression and recovery. The occurrence of these phases are repetitive in nature, that is they repeat themselves over a period of time. However, the business cycle may vary in length. According to observations made by certain economists, the duration of business cycle could range between 2 years to 12 years. The term trade cycle refers to fluctuations in aggregate production, trade and business activity over a span of several months or years in a market economy. It is the upward and the downward movements in the levels of GDP of the economy. The phase or period of high income, high output and high employment is called as the period of expansion, upswing or prosperity. On the contrary, the phase of period of low income, low output, low employment is known as the period of contraction, recession, downswing or depression. Let us consider certain definitions of trade cycle as given by various economists. First, according to Keynes, a trade cycle is composed of periods of good trade characterized by rising prices and low unemployment percentages, shifting with periods of bad trade characterized by falling prices, high unemployment percentages. The second definition, according to W.C. Michel, business cycles are a species of fluctuations in the economic activities of organized communities. The adjective business restricts the concept to fluctuations in activities which are systematically conducted on a commercial basis. The noun cycle bars out fluctuations which do not recur with a measure of regularity. Third definition, according to Gordon, business cycles consist of recurring alternation of expansion and contraction in aggregate economic activity. The alternating movements in each direction being self-reinforcing and pervading virtually over all parts of the economy. According to Frederick Benham, trade cycle is defined as a period of prosperity followed by a period of depression. It is not surprising that economic process should be irregular, trade being good at some time and bad at others. According to Timbergen, trade cycle is defined as the interplay between erratic shocks and an economic system able to perform cyclical adjustment moving to such shocks. According to Hansen, trade cycle is defined as peculiarly a manifestation of industrial segment of the economy from which prosperity or depression is redistributed to other groups in the highly interrelated modern system. With this, let us try to understand the concept of trade cycle in detail. Consider the diagram given here. This diagram explains different phases of trade cycle and how they influence the economic activities. We can definitely draw certain conclusion by observing the diagram, such as the alternating periods of expansion and contraction in the economic activities is termed as business cycle or trade cycles. Just like waves and tides continuously occur in the sea, similarly, one economic phase follows the other in the economy. The trade cycle starts from a trough, which is the lower turning point, and passes through a recovery phase followed by a period of expansion and prosperity. After the peak point is reached, there is declining phase of recession followed by depression. Thus, the business cycle continues similarly with ups and downs. Let us now understand some salient features of trade cycle. The first one is movement in economy. The trade cycle is basically an upward trend followed by a downward trend in the economy. A trade cycle is a wave-like movement in economic activities. This movement over a number of years, if plotted on a graph, resembles an ECG report of a heart. Second characteristic is periodic occurrence. Trade cycles are periodic in nature. There is usually a time gap of some years between two phases of trade cycle. This time gap usually is of 3 to 10 years. However, occurrence of a particular phase of trade cycle in an economy does not show the same regularity. Third, it has 4 phases. An economy usually experiences 4 phases of trade cycle, that is prosperity, recession, depression and recovery, which occurs on continual or sequential basis. Fourth is the duration. The duration of trade cycle is not fixed or same always. It may vary from a minimum of 2 years to maximum of 12 years or more. Fifth is the nature. There are minor trade cycles and major trade cycle. Minor trade cycles are the trade cycle that operate for 3 to 4 years, while major trade cycles operate for 4 to 8 years or even more. Though trade cycles differ in timing, however, they have a common pattern of occurrence. They occur on sequential basis. Next is dynamic. Trade cycles cause changes in all the sectors or segments of the economy. Trade cycle causes fluctuation not only in production and income, but also brings about instability in other economic variables like employment, investment, consumption, rate of interest, price level, etc. The next is phases are cumulative. No phase of trade cycle is constant. Expansion and contraction in trade cycle are cumulative in effect, that is, they increase or decrease progressively. Next is business uncertainties. There is uncertainty in the economy, especially for the businessmen, as profits fluctuate more than any other type of income. Next is global impact. Trade cycles have a global impact. An economic fluctuation occurring in one nation affects the entire global economy. No one can forget the adverse effect of Great Depression of 1930s, a situation that occurred in America and the world economy. Let us now move to phases of trade cycle. Trade cycle is often classified in different ways and in different form. Let us try and understand each of these phases in detail. The first phase is that of prosperity phase. When in an economy there is expansion of output, rise in income, employment, prices and profits, there is also a resultant rise in the standard of living. This period is termed as prosperity phase. Due to the situation of full employment of resources, the level of production is at its maximum level. There is a rise in gross national product. Due to a high level of economic activity, it causes a rise in profits and prices. There is an upswing in the economic activity and economy reaches its peak. Thus, this situation is also called as a boom period. The features of prosperity phase are: first, there is an expansion of output and trade in the economy. Second, there is an increase in effective demand. Third, there is an increase in level of income and employment. Fourth, there is a rise in bank rates or interest rate. Fifth, the economy faces an inflationary trend. There is a rise in prices of products and services. Sixth, expansion in the level of bank credit. Seventh, there is overall optimism in the economy. Next, there is a high level of marginal efficiency of capital and investment. Next, there is an excessive increase in investment and production activities. As such, there is comprehensive expansion in industrialization and trade related activities. Next, there is an increase in profits due to increase in production cost. Next, there is optimum utilization of all factors of production. Next, positive sign is seen everywhere in the economy. It brings hope for a better economic future. The second phase is that of recessionary phase. The turning point in the economic condition of a country from prosperity to depression is termed as recessionary phase. Let us see what are the features. During a recession period, the economic activities of the country slows down. There is a gradual fall in the level of general prices, output, income, employment and profits. There is also a gradual decline in demand for goods and services. The future production and investment plans also show sign of decline. The businessmen start losing confidence and become pessimistic about making further investment. As such, recessionary situation reduces investment. The banks and the people try to get greater liquidity. As such, there is contraction in the level of credit. Due to fall in business activities, orders are cancelled. People start losing their jobs. Stock market also falls. The increase in unemployment causes a sharp decline in income and aggregate demand. Generally, recession phase lasts for a very short period. The next phase is depression phase. When there is continuous decrease in the level of output, income, employment, prices and profits in the economy, there is a resultant fall in the standard of living. In such a situation, we can say that the phase of depression has set in the economy. In depression, there is underutilization of resources. This results in fall of gross national product. The aggregate economy is at the lowest level. This causes a decline in prices and profits until the economy reaches its trough, that is low point. Thus, it is also known as a period of slump. The features of depression are: there is fall in volume of output and trade, there is fall in trade, general level of income and rise in level of unemployment. There is decline in level of consumption and demand. There is fall in interest rates and bank rates. Next, deflationary trend is seen in the economy. There is contraction of bank credit. There is pessimism in the business community. As such, the number of investors and the risk bearers fall substantially. There is a fall in marginal efficiency of capital and investment. There is decrease in output and fall in business related activities and investment. There is an excessive decrease in the price of raw materials and agricultural goods than the price of produced goods. There is also a fall in credit demand due to decrease in willingness to make further investments. Depressionary situation brings in state of discouragement everywhere in the economy. The next phase, the fourth one, is the recovery phase. The turning point from depression to expansion is termed as recovery or revival phase. When there is a stimulation of investment, business and industrial activities, it brings about the revival or recovery of the economy. Some features of the recovery phase are: during the period of revival or recovery, there is rise in the economic activities. The market demand for goods and services start rising. The level of production also increases. This results in increase in investment. There is steady rise in output, income, employment, prices and profits. The businessmen start gaining confidence and become optimistic about making further investment and taking risks. The banks expand credit, which results in expansion of business activities. This further activates the stock market. There is gradual increase in the level of employment, production, wages, income and prices. Profits start rising and business expands. Revival slowly emerges into prosperity and the business cycle is repeated. Hopefulness slowly creeps in everywhere in the economy. So, students, till now we have seen the 4 phases of trade cycle and the characteristic feature of each trade cycle. Now, let us move to causes of trade cycle. The first cause is change in interest rates. A change in interest rate has a direct effect on consumer spending and economic growth. A fall in interest rate reduces borrowing cost. This increases disposable income for consumers. This leads to higher spending and economic growth. This causes inflationary pressure on the economy. The central bank of the country may increase interest rate in order to curb inflationary pressures. This in turn will tend to reduce consumer spending and investment, thus leading to economic downturn and recession. The second factor is changes in prices of real estate. A rise in prices of real estate creates a wealth effect. A rise in prices of real estate leads to higher consumer spending. Conversely, a fall in prices of real estate causes lower consumer spending and bank losses. In late 1980s, the boom in price of real estate caused an economic boom, whereas a fall in prices of real estate in early 90s caused the recession of 91-92. The third factor is external influences. People in general are easily influenced by external events. Negative economic news discourages people from spending and investing. This in turn makes a small negative economic situation into a bigger economic problem known as recession. But when the economy starts recovering, it causes a positive bandwagon effect. A positive economic growth encourages consumers to borrow and banks to extend credit. This causes higher economic growth. Level of general optimism and confidence is a crucial factor in causing the business cycle. Fourth is the multiplier effect. According to the multiplier, a fall in investment may cause a bigger fall in real GDP. For instance, if the government cuts on the public investment, there would be fall in aggregate demand and rise in unemployment. Those who lose their jobs would consequently spend less, leading to further decline in the aggregate market demand in the economy. Alternatively, a rise in investment could have a positive multiplier effect. Fifth is the accelerator effect. As per the accelerator effect, investment depends on the rate of change in the pattern of economic growth. This theory suggests that investment is quite volatile. A small variation in the rate of growth has a substantial effect on investment levels. For instance, if the growth rate falls, businesses withdraw investment because they do not expect output to rise. The next is the natural inventory cycle. Some argue that natural inventory cycle that causes the economy to transit from one phase of trade cycle to another. For instance, people usually buy certain luxurious, high priced commodities once in 5 years or so. However, when the economy is doing well and growth rate is positive, people buy these luxury items, giving a boost to economic growth. Conversely, people do not buy such commodities in situation of economic downturn, causing economy to further slow down. So, trade cycle has many economic implications. We have seen how trade cycle influences economic happenings and business systems. Economy is a dynamic system. It is influenced by both internal and external factors. The events and activities cannot be totally controlled. Economy has its own initiative and momentum. That is why the phenomenon of trade cycle occurs on regular basis. No economy can escape from the implications and influence of trade cycle. Therefore, it will be appropriate to understand why trade cycle occurs and how they influence the economy. It will provide a fund of information and lessons to every student of economics. Thank you very much.